I was on Twitter this morning and I came across this comment from a man named Malice. He states, if a conservative argues for equality before the law, ask them if a criminal should get a harsher penalty for assaulting a police officer. Now, this guy thinks this is a cute gotcha thing that's going to that's going to trip up a conservative. Setting aside the fact I'm not really a conservative. I'm gay. More libertarian, if anything. I believe in marijuana legalization. And that's kind of ironic considering all of his sycophantic toadies rushing around, kissing his ass, essentially are insulting me because I have 420 in my moniker. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, I have that there because I favor marijuana legalization. I have smoked pot in my past. I haven't gotten high in a while, but I don't find anything wrong with it. I think that people who drink alcohol are often just as lazy and shiftless as people who smoke pot. And I also believe that people who smoke pot can be just as creative and ambitious as people who don't do any drug. I think it was the CEO of what insurance company? Progressive? I guess that would be kind of ironic if it was Progressive. I'm just going to look this up really quick. This is kind of ad hoc here. Didn't mean to do this. Progressive Insurance CEO arrested for marijuana. I could have swore I've seen that headline somewhere. There we go, right there. Progressive CEO pot arrest prompts, and this was back in 2000. Yeah, okay, whatever. But we'll set that aside. If a conservative argues for equality before the law, ask them if a criminal should get a harsher penalty for assaulting a police officer. Now, I responded to that comment by saying, I get the feeling you don't really understand the phrase equality before the law. Now, my statement has resulted in, I've literally have gotten well over 100 insults today from people who literally have no clue what the fuck they're talking about. I had one guy who asserts that because I've argued that there is equality before the law, and the way I've argued it, that, oh, well, he can just go beat up a cop, or tase a cop. That's what his opinion was. I'm like, are you, okay, you do that, man. You do that. Well, let's take a look at what equality before the law is. Now, just in point of fact, equality before the law, it's a concept that was vociferously argued by Thaddeus Stevens. If you've seen the movie Lincoln, there's this whole scene about it, and about, no, not that specifically, but where it's tangentially argued, but that's neither here nor there. It's in Section 1 of the 14th Amendment, and it's called the Equal Protection Clause. It's this last part right here. Now, legal precedences pretty much kind of defined the parameters of this concept, and I went and searched Google, and it has a pretty nice little definition that actually it cites Wikipedia, but I went to the Wikipedia article and looked at where it's coming from them, and they're referencing Article 7 of the UN Charter, but it states, equality before the law, also known as equality under the law, equality in the eyes of the law, or legal equality, is the principle that establishes that each independent human being must be treated equally by the law, the principle of autonomy, and which all people are subject to the same laws of justice, due process. The Equal Protection Clause establishes that black people can sue white people, that there isn't a whole set of separate laws that only apply to black people. It's part of what made Jim Crow laws illegal, and it's part of how they were fought. The poll tax, all of that was a violation of the Equal Protection Clause. At its root, all it really means is that if person A commits a crime and person B commits a crime, that all things being equal, they're going to get charged with the same crime. That doesn't mean they're going to get the same sentence. It doesn't even mean that both will be convicted. One person might be found innocent and the other person might be convicted. And it doesn't mean if both are convicted, they're going to get the same sentence. All it means is that the law should be colorblind to who they are, in essence. Now, I'll admit, we don't live up to the Equal Protection Clause. Often, we have some very big issues there. In fact, the mere fact that Hillary Clinton was allowed to get away with something that resulted in jail time for a sailor is proof positive that we don't live up to that ideal entirely. Now, let's go back to Michael Malice's comment here. One of the biggest issues when you read this statement, if you know anything about the law at all, and you know anything about logic, is that he's comparing apples and oranges here. Because when we talk about equal equality before the law, that only is about the law. It has nothing to do with the penalty phase. The law, assaulting of a police officer, is applied equally, generally speaking, whether the person is black or white, whether the person is rich or poor, whether the person is powerful or just a lowly citizen. When you assault a police officer, there are going to be penalties for that. How harsh those are actually go back to who that person is. And that's where it becomes relevant. The way he wrote this, he's already assuming the person is a criminal. And he's already assumed they've been convicted. So if they're a criminal and they've been convicted, we have, as a society, have decided that people who assault police officers should receive a greater sentence, a greater charge, or not charge, but penalty, than somebody who just assaulted, Joe Blow. So he doesn't really understand. His whole argument is a mishmash of idiocy and ignorance. He doesn't have a clue what the fuck he's saying. All he's trying to do is play some kind of gotcha game for conservatives. So, just to wrap this up, Mr. Malice, you're wrong. You don't understand the concept of due process. You don't understand the Equal Protection Clause. Your question is really ignorant because you don't really understand what you're saying here. If you were trying to make something that would be like a gotcha, maybe, you would have phrased it something like, if a conservative argues for equality before the law, ask them if a black man should be charged for assaulting a police officer who was trying to break into his house to serve an improper warrant. Now, that would be an issue where courts have already established that if you are not a criminal and the cops are trying to treat you as a criminal, you do, in essence, have the right to protect your property, to defend your property, even against police officers. And let me see where that court case was. Another ad hoc search here right off the bat. God, what case was that? Ohio, I think. No, let's get rid of that. Stand your ground is Google wise is kind of. There it is. And citizens may resist unlawful arrest to the point of taking an arresting officer's life if necessary. Plummer versus State. Indiana. My bad. It's not Ohio. It was Indiana. Now, keep in mind, I'm pulling this shit out of my head because I've heard it and I've read it before. And I literally just ad hoc searched that and pulled that up. And this was, I don't remember exactly when this was. Let's see, 7 now. Let's read this here. And let's, the premise was upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court in the case John Bad Elk versus U.S. The court stated, where the officer is killed in the course of the disorder which naturally accompanies an attempted arrest that is resisted, the law looks with very different eyes upon the transaction when the officer had the right to make the arrest from what it does if the officer had no right. What may be murder in the first case might be nothing more than manslaughter in the other, or the facts might show that no offense had been committed. Now, my whole point here, and even mentioning that, is if the courts try to treat a black man differently for defending his house against an unlawful entry by a police officer, then you have an equal protection issue there. And I'm not doubting that we do have that. That's not the point. He doesn't understand. Michael Malice has no fucking clue what the phrase equality before the law means. Case closed. Fuck off, asshole.